No NFL optimizer is complete without stacking capabilities. Fortunately, this one's is pretty spectacular. Now, we start with team stack percentage, game stack percentage, force to flex percentage, etc. This is asking the minimum number, the minimum percentage of lineups that we want to follow these rules. So a team stack, a quarterback with one of his skill position players, either running back, wide receiver, or tight end, at 95%, which basically means no more than 5% naked quarterbacks. Now, game stack percentage is a team stack plus at least one skill position player on the opposing team. Force to flex percentage is what percent do you want double stacked. So here, this is saying in at least 45% of lineups, I want the quarterback with at least two of his skill position players. That could be two receivers. It could be a receiver with a tight end. It could be a running back with a tight end. Doesn't matter, whatever you want. Now, there are going to be other ways to get even more specific in terms of selecting the players. For example, let's say you thought, you know what, I really want to use Kyler Murray, but I don't want to use him with James Conner. If I'm stacking Kyler, I want that to be either Harrison or McBride or Michael Wilson. Well, then you can simply unselect the running back. So very, very easy here. We can also just quickly go ahead. We can unselect all of these naked quarterback boxes and say, okay, if a quarterback gets there without any skill position players, chances are he's doing it with his legs. So who are the quarterbacks who could conceivably rush for 2 touchdowns? Maybe it's Josh Allen, but typically I like to stack with Josh Allen. But let's just say you want him in there. Certainly, Anthony Richardson would be one of the options. Jaden Daniels, another option. So maybe we would only have 3 here. Maybe it'd just be Washington, Indianapolis, and Buffalo for the naked quarterback. And pretty much anybody then would be able to be team stacked. You can then also say how many players are going to be included in this stack. Let's say you really like Anthony Richardson, but you know, hey, if he gets there, he's doing it with his legs. So I don't think he can support 2 guys. So I want to make sure that I never have any double stacks with him. So I'm going to go 1, and maybe you even think he's okay naked. So now you go between 0 and 1 in all stacks. Boom. Okay, game stack. Again, this is basically just saying, you know, are you okay with a game stack happening? So if you leave these boxes checked, it's not like any of these are going to be forced in. It just means that they can be used as fillers for this game stack percentage, right? So the optimizer is going to be looking for game stacks, and if you unselect a box, like let's say you got rid of this one, you're now saying, look, you can stack Buffalo, but I don't want you grabbing any Cardinals in those stacks. I just think Buffalo is going to win by a lot, and the Cardinals aren't going to do very well. That's the game stack function. And then we also have up here, allow running back stack percentage. So this is a maximum number now. So here we're saying I'm only okay with running back stacks. So quarterback and running back together in a maximum of 25% of lineups. And then, of course, you can help choose which teams actually allow that kind of stack down here. So maybe you say, you know what, James Cook is good here, but if I'm using, Dak Prescott, I don't want Ezekiel Elliott or Rico Dowdle to be part of that lineup. I want that to be CeeDee Lamb or Brandon Cooks or Jake Ferguson, etc. So then you would go and unselect that one there. Finally, we have forced second game stack. So a secondary stack is you have at least one skill position player on both sides of the game without the quarterback. So that might be, Dalton Kincaid and Marvin Harrison Jr. without Josh Allen or Kyler Murray. Here you're saying you're allowing that secondary game stack. What you might say is, you know what, if I have at least one player on each of these teams, then I really want one of those quarterbacks. If I have, Trey McBride and Curtis Samuel or Dalton Kincaid and Marvin Harrison Jr., I want to make sure I have one of those quarterbacks. So I don't want that game to be a secondary stack. I only want those combinations of players when I'm using a quarterback. That's what this function is for. Again, if you leave the box checked, you're not forcing anything in. You're just telling the optimizer that you're okay with that if it thinks it's worth it. And then finally, we have this allow running back plus DST stack. The only time you don't want to do this is when the running back, is more of a pass catcher. He will do better in game scripts when they are chasing from behind and they have to do really well. Whereas, if you are looking at Zeke Elliott and Dallas stack, those are probably correlated pretty well. So I think a really good example in the past was you probably didn't want Austin Eckler and the Chargers in too many stacks a few years ago. Of course, over the last couple of years, he's been the primary back. Same thing with like J.D. McKissick when he was a thing in Washington as well. You wouldn't want that type of stack. But for the most part, they're fine. And if you want to force some running back plus defense stacks, if you think that those are pretty strong, you can change this minimum number. So if this was 25, you'd now be saying, I want at least 25% of my lineups to have a running back and the defense from the same team.